It began on a morning that should have been ordinary. 8-year-old Amara Okello was walking the dusty path between her family's compound and the cattle boma when she heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Not the bleating of goats or the distant trumpet of elephants, but something smaller, desperate. Crying. She stopped, head tilted, listening. Her father had warned her never to stray from the path. The bush held dangers a child couldn't understand, leopards in the trees, snakes in the grass, and worse. But the sound pulled at something deep in her chest. It came again, faint, pleading. Amara stepped off the path. 50 meters into the scrub, she found them. 3 tiny lion cubs, no bigger than house cats, huddled beneath a fallen marula tree. Their eyes were barely open, their fur still spotted and soft. They mewed weakly, pawing at the air, searching for a mother who wasn't there. Amara crouched low, heart pounding. Where was the lioness? Lions didn't abandon their cubs. Not unless something had happened. She scanned the bush, no movement, no sound. No massive golden body watching from the shadows. Only vultures circling overhead. She looked back at the cubs. One was smaller than the others, ribs showing through its thin coat. It trembled as it tried to crawl toward her, collapsing after just 2 steps. Amara made a decision that would change everything. She pulled off her shawl, wrapped the 3 cubs inside, and carried them home. Her father, Juma, was not pleased. Lions, Amara? His voice was low, controlled, the kind of anger that was worse than shouting. You brought lions into our home? They were dying, Baba, she said quietly, clutching the bundle to her chest. Their mother is gone. If I left them, they would be dead by morning. Juma stared at his daughter, then at the tiny faces peeking out from the fabric. His wife, Nia, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face unreadable. They are wild animals, Juma said. Not pets. Not children. Wild. I know, Amara whispered. But they're babies. The silence stretched. Then Nia stepped forward, knelt beside her daughter, and gently pulled back the shawl. The smallest cub looked up at her with cloudy blue eyes, too weak to even cry. Nia sighed. They won't survive the night without milk. Juma closed his eyes, jaw tight. Then he turned and walked outside without another word. But he didn't make her take them back. Amara named them Tau, Nala, and Quito. Tau was the largest, bold and clumsy, always the first to explore. Nala was cautious, watchful, her amber eyes tracking everything. And Quito, the smallest, the weakest, was the one Amara worried about most. He barely ate at first, his breathing shallow and uneven. For 3 days, she wasn't sure he would make it. She fed them goat's milk from a bottle every few hours, warming it over the fire, coaxing them to drink. She cleaned them, kept them warm, whispered to them in the dark when they cried for a mother they would never see again. On the 4th morning, Quito lifted his head and drank without stopping. Amara cried with relief. The cubs grew quickly. Within weeks, they were tumbling over each other, play fighting in the dirt outside the compound. The village children would gather to watch, laughing as the tiny predators pounced on sticks and wrestled with each other's tails. But not everyone was charmed. Old Kamau, a village elder, stopped by one afternoon. He watched the cubs for a long time, his weathered face grim. You know what they are, don't you? He said quietly to Juma. I know. And you know what they will become? Juma nodded slowly. Yes. Kamau looked at Amara, who was lying in the shade with all 3 cubs sprawled across her lap, purring like oversized house cats. When they are grown, Kamau said, they will not remember her kindness. They will only remember they are lions. Juma said nothing. But the question hung in the air, unanswered. What happens when they grow up? 6 months passed. The cubs were no longer small. Tau's shoulders were broadening, his paws massive and clumsy. Nala's body was lean and muscular, her movements becoming fluid and predatory. And Quito, once so fragile, had grown into a sleek, graceful cat with piercing green eyes. They no longer fit inside the house. Juma built a large enclosure behind the compound. Strong posts, thick wire, a sheltered corner where they could sleep. But Amara hated it. She would sit inside the pen for hours, the 3 lions draped around her like oversized blankets. "They're not happy," she told her father one evening. "They're safe," he replied. "They're prisoners." Juma's expression softened. "Amara, they are growing. Every day, they become more of what they truly are. And what they are is not something that can live among people forever." She knew he was right. She had seen the way Tao watched the goats now, not with playfulness, but with hunger. The way Nala's eyes tracked movement with perfect, predatory focus. The way Quito's body tensed when strangers approached. They were changing. And soon, a choice would have to be made. It happened on a Tuesday, just after dawn. Amara woke to shouting. She ran outside and found her father and 3 other men standing around the enclosure, rifles in hand. The gate was open. The lions were gone. "What happened?" she gasped. "Someone let them out," one of the men said grimly. "During the night." Amara's blood went cold. "Who?" No one answered. But she saw the way they looked at Kamau's compound across the way. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's done, Amara. They're gone. It's better this way." "Better?" Her voice cracked. "They don't know how to survive out there. They've never hunted. They'll starve." "They're lions," Juma said gently. "They'll learn." But Amara wasn't sure. And the question that haunted her for months afterward was, did they survive? Or did she raise them only to send them to their deaths? 7 years passed. Amara was 15 now, tall and lean, her childhood softness replaced by the quiet strength of someone who had learned to carry loss. She rarely spoke of the lions anymore. Most people in the village had forgotten about them, but she hadn't. Sometimes, late at night, she would lie awake and wonder, are they still alive? Did they find a pride? Do they remember me? She told herself it didn't matter. They were wild animals. They belonged to the bush, not to her. But she never truly believed it. One afternoon, she was sent to collect firewood from the edge of the forest, a task she'd done 100 times before. She filled her bundle quickly, eager to get back before dark, when she heard it. Laughter. High-pitched and cruel. Then barking. Dozens of voices, sharp and manic. Hyenas. Amara's heart stopped. She turned slowly and saw them emerging from the tree line. 8, maybe 10. Their heads low, shoulders hunched, teeth bared in those horrifying grins that made them look like they were already tasting her. She backed away slowly, clutching the firewood like a weapon. But hyenas didn't fear humans, especially not one teenage girl. Alone. Far from help. The lead female took a step forward. Then another. Amara ran. She didn't make it 10 meters before they charged. She screamed, stumbling over roots, her lungs burning. The firewood scattered. The snarling grew louder, closer. She could hear their breath, feel the ground shaking beneath their paws. And then, from the left, a roar split the air. Not the yipping of hyenas, not the cry of a girl. A lion's roar. Deep. Furious. Unmistakable. The hyenas skidded to a halt, whirling toward the sound. 3 lions burst from the undergrowth. The first was massive, broad-shouldered, golden, his mane just beginning to darken around his neck. He slammed into the lead hyena with bone-crushing force, sending it tumbling. The second was leaner, faster, her movements surgical as she circled the pack, cutting off their retreat. And the third, smaller, sleeker, with piercing green eyes, positioned himself directly between Amara and the clan. The hyenas hesitated. Then, as one, They turned and fled into the bush, their laughter fading into the distance. Amara stood frozen, chest heaving, unable to process what had just happened. The largest lion turned to face her, and she knew. "Tao?" she whispered. The lion's ears flicked forward. He took a step closer, and Amara's instincts screamed at her to run. But she didn't. She couldn't, because she recognized the tilt of his head, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. "Nala," she looked at the female, who sat calmly a few meters away, tail flicking. "Quito." The smallest lion, still smaller than his brother, but powerful and graceful, made a sound low in his chest. Not a growl, a rumble, almost a purr. Amara sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then Quito stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Until he was close enough to touch, he lowered his head and pressed it gently against her shoulder. Just like he used to when he was small. Amara wrapped her arms around his neck and sobbed. Tao and Nala watched, unmoving, their presence protective and calm. They stayed with her until the sun began to set. Then, one by one, they turned and disappeared back into the bush, silent as shadows, powerful as the wild itself. Amara walked home in a daze. When she told her father what had happened, he didn't believe her at first, but then he saw the tracks, massive paw prints surrounding the spot where she'd been attacked. He saw the scattered hyena prints, the signs of a fight, the unmistakable evidence of lions. "They saved you," he said quietly. "They remembered," Amara whispered. Word spread quickly. Some said it was impossible, others said it was a miracle. A few insisted the lions must have been protecting their territory, nothing more. But Amara knew the truth. She had saved them when they were helpless, and when she needed them most, they had returned the favor. Over the following months, there were occasional sightings. 3 lions spotted near the village boundary, watching but never approaching, keeping the hyena clans at bay, guarding the edges of the territory where the people lived. Amara never tried to find them. She knew better. They were wild now, fully and completely. They had their own lives, their own world, but sometimes, late at night, she would hear a distant roar echoing across the savannah, and she would smile. Because somewhere out there, beneath the same stars that watched over her village, 3 lions were thriving, strong, free, and alive. Not because she had tamed them, but because she had loved them enough to let them go. And in their own way, in the language of the wild, they had loved her back.